So being the man of mystery, Stephen, as Jacqueline used to describe you, there seemed to be quite a few rumours flying around about you, one of which I think you were moving to Australia at some point.
Well, yes, I went to Australia to the Melbourne Cup and a few other meetings shortly before I gave up, and I'd already made the decision to give up. And when I got back, I heard a rumour that I'd gone there with a view to moving out there and starting up again there. In fact, nothing had been further from my mind. And even if it had been, when I got there, I'd have changed my mind. I remember the first meeting I went to there was at Randwick, which is the biggest course in Sydney, and I got there a bit late. Have a look at the ring, which was behind the stand, ran up to the stand to watch the first race, and I thought there'd been a bomb scare. There was almost no one there. So I certainly didn't think that was the place to start again.
Did you get involved then in the bookmakers over there, the Waterhouses or anybody?
No. I mean, I spoke to a few and asked them what the scene was like, which was interesting, but I certainly didn't have any thought about moving out there. And another rumour in my early days was that I wasn't there making a book. This was particularly at Eastfield Dogs in Bristol. I wasn't there as a career. I was only there because I was going to write a thesis on bookmaking. But again, that was a long way from the truth.
What would the business have been like at those dog tracks back in those days?
Well, I was only in the second ring, but it was viable, certainly. What was rather extraordinary was that there would be periods of time when whatever they backed, if they backed two dogs in a race, they'd be first and second all the way around, and that would go on for ages. And yet there'd be other times where what they backed beforehand, bore no relation at all to what happened in the race. Unfortunately, the first period was more common than the second period.
Did you get the impression that it was not necessarily straight horse racing?
Yes, I'd say so, yeah.
And many sort of lumpy bets there, did you have to try and avoid them?
Yes, well, again, you'd only bet to how you felt the market was. At that time I was concerned to be a reasonable sized layer, but I wasn't trying to take the whole track on, especially from the second ring.
Ben Keefe, who started at the Dogs quite young, now runs own Star Sports. He mentioned that quite a few punters were quite intimidating when they were trying to get on. Were you ever cowtailed by people like that?
Not particularly, no.
Stephen, you mentioned you had sharing a dog. Have you ever got involved with horse racing as an owner?
Yes, I had a half share in a horse once. I was trained by Toby Balding, and she won the Jersey Vase, which is not to be confused with the Jersey Stakes, because it was actually in Jersey. But we couldn't even get placed on the mainland, unfortunately. And that was an interesting experience, but I haven't been tempted to dabble again, because I feel if you own a horse, it's a bit like taking evens about a 10-to-1 shot. And I wouldn't mind taking 7 or 8-to-1, just for the interest, but I think the odds are stacked so much against you that it's rather less than tempting.
Did you have a bet on the win at the Jersey Vase?
No, because the figures out there were definitely not conducive to tempting me to have a bet.
Once a bookmaker, always a bookmaker.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I was quite involved with the NAB, National Association of Bookmakers, for quite a while, and I was president of the local association, West of England Bookmakers Association, which meant going to London for NAB meetings quite often, and pitch committee meetings and appeals and so on, which again was interesting. I was quite involved with the negotiations that led to the upheaval on in racecourse bookmaking. Unfortunately, they didn't turn out to be very good for the future of bookmaking, I felt. It was very frustrating, though, to be... I always felt, listening to RCA personnel, boards on the rails was inevitable. And I spent a lot of time thinking about ways not to avoid it, because I knew that couldn't happen, but to make it come in fairly for all bookmakers, not just rails bookmakers, but for tax bookmakers as well. And it was very irritating to be thought of only being there to look after my own interests. And at the end, in fact, to be virtually hounded out of the presidency of the West of England Association. And not to be recognised as trying to do my best for all bookmakers and not just for myself. Which may be fair to say a lot of people involved in bookmaking politics were mainly looking out for their own interests rather than bookmakers as a whole.
So you left before boards actively came onto the rails.
Yes.
Do you think that would have had a positive or a detrimental effect on your business had you still been standing?
I suppose it would have helped. It depends. I mean, one proposal I made was that bookmakers... I did recognise that if boards on the rails suddenly came, it wouldn't be fair for me to stay on the rails in front of bookmakers who had far more seniority in the ring. The one proposal I made was that bookmakers who wanted to stay on the rails without a board should be allowed to do so, irrespective of their seniority. Whereas the boards, the pitches on the rails with boards would be allocated, with regard to seniority. And I felt I could compete, without a board, because in fact at somewhere like Stratford, the setup was that I was virtually next to bookies with boards, and obviously it was to some extent a disadvantage to be without a board, but I felt it was one I could cope with.
Of course, the main advantage for anyone that was on the rails when it came in would have been their pitch value would have rocketed, surely.
Yes. Yes, I suppose if there's one regret, it's not. It's that I didn't hang on until boards came in, and I'd have got more for my pitches. But on the other hand, the game was so bad at the time, I might have lost that. In the meantime, betting on the rails, for that year or two.
You say the game was gone, but have you seen that recently a pitch went for over 100,000 for Ascot? Or was it Cheltenham? I forget which one it was now, but they're still fetching astronomical amounts of money.
Well, they are, and I suppose, the festival meetings, there is money to be made, but I'm still glad I'm not there. I think I just don't think I'd be enjoying it. I mean, all the irritations, the paperwork. I mean, for instance, my licence, it used to cost £20 to renew for 3 years, and it was one side of A4. And now a licence is hundreds of pounds every year, and it's about 35 pages because of all the paperwork. And you could put up with that if you're making bundles of money, but not convinced that there are throughout the year bundles of money to be made. And at ordinary meetings nowadays, it's pitiful to see how few bookies there are there compared to what there used to be.
I mean, when the boards came in on the rails, a lot of the mystique of a rails bookmaker must have vanished, and you'd think they probably became glorified Tattersalls bookmakers at that point.
Yes, it certainly changed the business radically. Nowadays, you've got silvering bookies on the rails, and and which I think is a mistake, because you see them offering a price and you can't get a decent bet on with them. One other thing I wouldn't like to be doing in present day circumstances is those huge joints that everyone has to carry around. I remember when I lived in Devizes, I'd lost my driving licence and I had to get to Yarmouth to bet there, and I cycled the 10 miles to Pewsey with the joint on the back of the bike to get on the train to Yarmouth, and I certainly wouldn't like to attempt that with the present day joints.
Where did all the readies go?
Well, they were in my pocket. They didn't take much space, unfortunately.
So you used to take big bets as well, small bets as well as big bets, I understand.
Yes, I think it was important to, I felt I was there to offer a service, not just for my own benefit. And so I used to take small bets as well, and I always used to say that as far as women were concerned, that the minimum bet was inversely proportional to their chest size.